How long do cravings actually last when you stop drinking? Most people expect cravings to stay constant or slowly fade over time. But that is not how it works. Cravings do not disappear in a straight line. They follow a pattern. Understanding that pattern reveals something important about when cravings feel the strongest and when they finally start to lose their grip. When a craving hits, why does it feel like it is going to last forever? The brain is one of the most powerful prediction machines in the body. It runs patterns based on past experience. When someone drinks regularly, the brain builds a detailed map of that habit. It learns the triggers, the timing, the reward, and once that map is built, it does not just disappear. Instead, it keeps sending signals based on what it expects to happen next. That is what a craving actually is. It is the brain running an old program and expecting the usual response. When a craving activates, it does not arrive quietly. The brain sends a surge of signals all at once. Dopamine expectation rises sharply. The body moves into a state of tension and anticipation. Emotions tied to drinking, relief, escape, relaxation activate at the same time. The experience feels urgent because the brain is treating it as urgent. It has done this hundreds or thousands of times before, and every single time, the response came. Most cravings rise, peak, and fall within 15 to 30 minutes, and this is where most people get it wrong. The brain does not present cravings as temporary. It presents them as urgent, important, immediate, necessary. The feeling does not come with a timer. It does not arrive with a message that says, "This will pass in 20 minutes." It arrives with full force and no signal that it's going to stop. That urgency was trained into the brain over time. Every time a craving fired and alcohol followed, the brain reinforced the message, "This signal must be answered." The longer the habit ran, the stronger that message became. So even a craving that only lasts 20 minutes can feel completely unbearable, not because it is lasting forever, but because the brain has learned to make it feel that way. But here's where it gets interesting. Cravings do not just happen randomly. They follow timing patterns. And the timeline of those patterns is one of the most important things to understand when stopping drinking. Because once those patterns become visible, the entire experience starts to feel less like something happening to you and more like something you can understand and navigate. But cravings do not stay the same. When are cravings actually the strongest? In the first few days after stopping, cravings tend to be at their most intense. They come more frequently, they hit harder, and they are much harder to ignore. There are several reasons for this happening all at once. Dopamine levels drop. Alcohol artificially raises dopamine. Over time, the brain adjusts by producing less of its own. When alcohol is removed, that dopamine deficit is felt immediately. The brain is running low on the chemical that signals pleasure and motivation, and it knows exactly what use to fix that problem. At the same time, the stress response activates. Alcohol suppresses the nervous system. When it is removed, the nervous system becomes more reactive. Anxiety rises. Sleep becomes disrupted. The body moves into a state of heightened alertness that makes everything feel more intense, including cravings. The brain is also still expecting alcohol to arrive. It has been receiving that signal on a regular schedule. The absence of it does not immediately register as a new pattern. It registers as a delay. So the cravings keep firing, waiting for the expected response. This is why the first 3 to 4 days often feel completely overwhelming. Every system in the body is responding to an absence it does not yet understand. When do cravings start to change? After the first week, something begins to shift. The changes are subtle at first, but they are real, and they are measurable. Dopamine levels start to stabilize. The brain begins producing more of its own dopamine again as it adjusts to the absence of alcohol. This does not happen overnight, but by the end of the first week, the deficit begins to close. Small things start to feel slightly more rewarding. That is a sign the brain is recalibrating. The stress response begins to settle as well. The nervous system, which was in a heightened state during the first few days, starts to find a new baseline. Anxiety levels typically begin to drop during week 1 to 2. Sleep begins recovering, which matters more than most people realize. Poor sleep makes cravings significantly worse. As sleep improves, the intensity of cravings tends to decrease along with it. Cravings do not disappear during this phase, but they become less constant. There's more space between them, and that space is one of the first real signs that the brain is beginning to adapt. And this is the part most people miss. Cravings do not just get weaker, they get shorter. Most people track how often cravings happen or how strong they feel when they arrive, but very few people notice that the cravings are not lasting as long as they used to. That change in duration is one of the clearest signs of progress, and it often goes completely unnoticed. What actually changes as time goes on? Three things happen together, and they happen gradually. First, frequency drops. Cravings come up less often throughout the day. What once felt like constant background noise begins to appear only at certain times, usually tied to specific triggers. Second, intensity drops. When a craving does arrive, it does not hit as hard. The peak is lower. The urgency is less overwhelming. Third, duration drops. The craving passes faster. Where it once lasted 20 or 30 minutes, it might now pass in 10, then 5. All three of these changes are happening at the same time, even when they are difficult to notice from the inside. Why can cravings still appear even weeks later? Because the brain does not delete old habits. It stores them. The neural pathway that connected stress, environment, or emotion to alcohol is still present. It can still be activated by the right trigger, a familiar place, a specific emotion, a certain time of day, even a smell. These can still wake that pathway up, weeks or even months after stopping. This is why unexpected cravings feel so alarming. They seem to come out of nowhere and suggest that nothing has changed. But that is not what they mean. They mean the brain encountered a trigger that matched an old pattern. The pathway fired, but without reinforcement, it fades faster each time it activates. The craving is real, but it does not last the way it used to. So what actually helps when a craving hits? The first approach is to wait it out. Knowing that a craving has a biological ceiling changes how it feels to experience one. It is a wave. It will peak and it will fall. That knowledge alone reduces the panic that often makes cravings feel worse than they need to. The second approach is to change the environment. The brain is responding to a trigger. Moving to a different room, stepping outside, or shifting your location interrupts the signal chain. The craving loses some of its fuel when the trigger is removed. The third approach is to avoid overreacting. A craving is a signal. It is not a verdict. It does not mean the process is failing. It means the brain is running an old program that has not fully faded yet. That is expected, that is normal, and it becomes less frequent over time. Over time, the brain learns that the old pattern is no longer being used. Every time a craving fires and is not reinforced, the signal weakens. The pathway loses strength slowly and steadily. What once felt urgent starts to feel distant. What once felt like a command starts to feel like background noise. Cravings do not last as long as they feel. They spike, then they fall. And as the brain adapts, they come less often, feel less intense, and pass more quickly. And eventually, they stop feeling like something you have to fight at all.